After conducting thousands of painting business diagnostics in this industry, I have seen every way you can price painting services, every conceivable arrangement. Today, I'm going to go through the 6 most common mistakes and methodologies that I see painters use. And the reason these are not good is because it decreases your income, it doesn't align reality with the pricing, it does not align the profitability objectives of the company with the incentive paid to the painters. So I'm going to walk through 6 of these, and then I'm going to talk to you about some concepts that you may not have thought about what you're really in the business of doing. We're going to look at some prerequisites that are required to make this pricing methodology work. And I'm also going to walk through the advantages of doing it this way. If you don't know me, my name is Brandon Lewis with the Academy for Professional Painting Contractors. I've been in the painting industry for 15 years, and I have coached over 500 painting contractors in 6 different countries over the last decade. And so what I'm going to bring to you here is not a bunch of Brandon's opinions. Like, I know what works and I know what doesn't. And everything that will be presented today, I kid you not, is the gospel truth of pricing painting services. If you want to dig in depth to some of this stuff, we're going to leave production rates out because that's another conversation entirely. If you type in paintingproductionrates.com, I think it's paintingproductionrates.com, I have a free report and guide and checklist that you can use to learn more about that. But for today, we're only going to talk about pricing. Before I get into it, also, I'd like to invite you to the 9th Annual Painting Profits Summit. You can go to paintingprofitsummit.com. I'd love to see you there. We've got a great lineup of really the world's wealthiest painters, folks that are doing really good, people that have completely transformed, changed their business. We're going to talk about all the methodologies and strategies that work today. And we're also having some exciting pre-days on the sales and operations side. So if either of those functions in your business aren't where you want them to be, check out paintingprofitsummit.com. There might be something there for you. So again, I have seen every imaginable way you can price painting, okay? I'm going to go through some of the things that don't work here today, and hopefully you're not doing any of them. Here's the first one. Number 1. First one is wild. Watch out. First one is wild ass guess. People look at a house and they just pull a number out of the air, like the whole damn number, the whole thing. Oh, it looks about like $1,200, labor and material included. That looks like $3,200. That looks like $6,300. That does not work because it has nothing to do with the labor and material that's actually required. Probably the worst methodology for pricing, but it is more common than you might think. Here's the next one. Price per square foot of floor. Now you may ask, why are painters pricing things based upon the square footage of the floor when it's not what they're painting? That is a question that I have. It doesn't make any sense. It is illogical. It is nonsensical. The reason that this price per square foot thing still exists, for example, we charge $250 a square foot, $350 a square foot, is because general contractors have conditioned painting contractors to present their prices that way. And so we get it in our minds that in the repaint market, this is still the way to do it. Now, I'm going to tell you that this still isn't the way to do it, even in new construction, but you can take a number and back into it. Maybe we can get around to talking about that later, but this doesn't make any sense. It doesn't have anything to do with the surfaces you're painting. The rates are blended, so you don't know, am I high on my labor and low on my materials or vice versa? This does not work. Here's another one, unit pricing. Unit pricing. What is unit pricing? This is where you price things based upon the square foot. Like, we're going to charge $1.50 to paint the walls. We're going to charge 25 cents a linear foot for trim, or whatever this number is. We're going to charge $100 to paint a door, anything like that. It doesn't work for a number of reasons. Number one is typically it's not based upon how long it takes to do it. Like this price per square foot number or whatever just gets pulled out of the air. Maybe you talked to somebody at the paint store and they said, this is what we charge. You started charging that way. Further, uh, you don't pay your painters by the square footage. And this is a big problem. You've got to align your pricing strategy with how you pay your painters. And so if you're not paying your painters, for example, if you're going to do $1.50 on the walls, are you paying your guys 75 cents a square foot? You go count the things and pay them that way? Probably not. You're probably paying them by the hour. And so when you pay people by the hour, and subcontractors get paid by the hour too, right? Even if you give them a flat rate of a certain percentage of the labor component or material and labor together, which is a mistake, but you pay them, they're still paying their painters by the hour. And that is why keeping everything by the hour works so much better. And the other thing about unit pricing is I see unit pricing put together that commingles the material and the labor component, and no one ever really knows if it's accurate or not. And finally, if you're going to use unit pricing, you're going to have like 70, 80 SKUs, meaning 70 or 80 pricing numbers. And whenever you want to change what you're charging in your business, now you've got to go adjust all those numbers. And that is not workable. And so if you're using this doesn't work. Here's another one. Guessing the number of days. Brandon, I like to get about $500 a day or whatever. Some kind of weird arbitrary number. And usually people don't even know what it comes out to by the hour. It is so weird. Yet they're paying their people by the hour. But they just look at something, they cock their head to the left, they guess how many days it is, and then they multiply it by an arbitrary day rate. Now, the other one, number 5, is guessing hours, which honestly usually ends up just being days. But people look at something, well, that's about 2 hours, that's about 10 hours, that's about, and then they cobble all their guesses together into one monster guess. And then they multiply it by an hourly charge rate. And sometimes it's where it needs to be, and sometimes it isn't. And another thing I want to talk about here quickly is blending. Blending, and I see this all the time, and when I do my diagnostics, occasionally for some reason, this does not come up in the conversation. And then I learn it later, and I'm like, oh, no wonder you're at 40% gross profit when you're trying to be at 50, or you think you're trying to be at 50. You never want to blend materials and labor in any pricing situation. Let me explain a few examples. Square foot pricing. If you got number one, it's bad enough to be using that, but you don't want to have a component that is $1.50 that includes labor and material. No. You calculate exactly how much paint is required. You calculate exactly how much labor is required. You don't want to blend those together. Another thing you don't want to do is I charge $70 an hour and that includes paint. Labor has nothing to do with material at all. Nothing. Well, Brandon, when I look at my jobs, about 15% is material, so that's what I do on every job. You don't take averages of what happens on all your jobs and use that to price a specific job. That makes no sense. Further, when you do that, for example, if you go spray a warehouse, you're going to lose money on materials. If you go to paint trim exclusively somewhere, or to do what I had folks out here doing yesterday, painting metal handrails, you're going to use a lot of labor and very little material. And so having that blended rate makes you either win or lose in a lot of jobs when you could actually win on every job. Okay? So the reason I want to talk to you about this is because this does not align with what you really do for a living. Okay? What do you do for a living? That's a good question. While I erase this, what you do for a living is you buy labor wholesale and you sell it retail. That's what you do for a living. You buy labor wholesale and you sell it retail. You buy the labor by the hour, you buy the paint, primarily by the gallon. I know there's some other things, but paint is the major component. And so you're buying it from your painters, whether they're subs or W-2s, you're buying it from your painters, and then you're selling it to the homeowner or the commercial end user. You're buying it from the store and you're selling it to the end user. So everything needs to be in hours and everything needs to be in gallons. And this is the best pricing strategy I know of to make sure that you're absolutely aligned with your market. 3 quick prerequisites for what I'm about to show you. Production rates, quality leads, and persuasive, I hope I spelled this right, sales. All right. Why do you have to have these 3 prerequisites? Even if you price your services correctly by the hour and you match it up with the market, if you're still guessing, the price you ultimately deliver to the client may be too high or too low. It's not going to be accurate. You're going to have huge amounts of variance in your gross profit. It would be like shooting a gun that had unreliable sights. Sometimes it's going to be high, sometimes it's going to be low, sometimes it's going to be left, sometimes it's going to be right. You've got to sight that thing in, right? So if you say there's 100 hours, it needs to be a 100-hour job. It doesn't need to be a 90-hour job or a 110-hour job. So you can't be guessing. So production rates are how you determine how long it takes to paint something. It's the methodology you use to come up with the number of labor hours and material coverage rates, the amount of material that you're going to use. So for example, if you know that in a crowded residential environment that your painters can paint 150 square feet of wall and there's 1,500 square feet, there's 10 labor hours. If you charge $65, it's $650 for that line item. If it's 1,500 square feet and you can get 300 square feet per gallon, that's 5 gallons of paint. You buy it for 25, you sell it for 50 to the end user. That's what I mean, right? Linear feet of trim, 45 minutes for this type of window, an hour for this type of large door, whatever it is. And so production rates are simply you measuring how long it takes to do things. Now, there are pre-done production rates that you can purchase from organizations. The PCA has some that seem to be a little bit more geared to new construction. We have rates in our production rate module that we give to members when they enroll, so they don't have to worry if they've got rates that are correct and these rates that have been tested and looked at. Or you can get into software. Drip Jobs, Estimate Rocket, Paint Scout. There's a wide variety of different options when you're looking at estimating software, and they all have built-in production rates. So production rates are how you accurately how you accurately predict with fairly good certainty and little variance how long it's going to take. Quality leads. I'm going to show you a pricing strategy, but if you're generating all your leads online and they're not the best quality and you've got very low percentages of repeat and referral rates, you can still get this price, but your close rate's going to be lower, and that leads me to persuasive sales. If you're emailing a PDF, calling them a couple of times, letting that go on for about 10 days and leaving them alone, you're not giving them any collateral, there's no pre-positioning, there are no presenting tools, you're not showing them any proof, your messaging is incorrect, there's no evidence, you're not presenting on site, all that stuff, it's going to be harder for you to get these rates that I'm going to talk about because your quality of your leads and the persuasiveness of your sales process controls a number of metrics. Your close rate, your average transaction size. One thing that might be interesting for you, go look at the jobs you've sold and look at the jobs you've lost and see how far apart they are. If they are thousands and thousands of dollars apart, you've probably got a very bad sales process. If they're closer together, you've probably got a good sales process. Okay? So transaction size, close rate, and then what you can get for what I call the maximum ethical charge rate. Okay? How do you get that? So here is Brandon Lewis's methodology for determining this. Okay? So in an ideal world, in my opinion, you should be running 2-man crews. 2 men. If you've got 10 men on 5 crews, you make the same amount of money as if you have 2 5-person crews. The more people you put on a crew, the more inefficient they are. The more standing around there is, the more finger pointing. When you just have one good crew leader and one A-level painter, and we're going to talk about quality in a moment before we come up with this pricing, They can be very efficient, very effective. If you ever have a big job, you can put 2 crews on, right? 4 people. If it's a big, huge exterior or interior or something like that, you can always combine those people. But you want to have, I like to have 50% management to labor. It is easier. And now the crew leader does not have to handle or deal with interpersonal relationships. Like he doesn't have to worry about is painter 1 and painter 2 getting together because it's just him and a painter. Okay. In most situations, 2-man crews are absolutely the way to go. So my pricing method, which works everywhere, and you can steal it, that's fine with me, is this. First, you've got to figure out what a A-level crew leader makes. And then you've got to figure out what an A-level painter makes. One common mistake I see people make all the time is they're cheap asses. They're cheap asses. And so they want to go out and find the cheapest crew leader, people out of high school for painters. We're going to train them up. And it never seems to work out. Now, if you've got a big, huge painting company and you have a training methodology and you've got, 20, 15 painters and you can afford to kind of bring one in and bring one up, that's fine. But typically smaller painting businesses cannot afford to train anyone really. And so your best bet is to go out and recruit away from other painting companies. They're top level painters that are unhappy, that aren't paid appropriately, that don't have any save labor bonus or performance pay incentives, no vacation, no recognition from the owner, and you go take them away from other companies. And for example, if you know that in your area, the average crew lead makes $30, I'm going to ask you to go find the guy that makes 35. That's really good, that's at the top of the pay scale, and then go find a painter that is really good at the top of the pay scale. Why? When you build your painting business with special forces, it runs a lot better than the general infantry. I know you think maybe that you are going to save some money by paying people less or hiring people that are lower quality. It does not work out. What you want to do is hire very competent people that are very productive. Okay, that's who you want to go after, it because you can get more done with 6 2-man crews that are aces than you can 8 people that are deuces. You just can't do it. And so, for example, let's say that if the A-level crew leader gets 35, and let's say that your A-level painter gets 25, I'm just, again, making numbers up here, then we add these 2 things together, that's $60 an hour. Okay? We're going to take $60, okay, which is the total. We're going to divide it by 2, and that's going to give us $30 an hour on average. Are you following me so far? Then we're going to multiply this times 1.2. Gosh, am I going to have to go get a calculator? I think I am. 1.2, which at 20% of, what is that? 2 times, so I think it's going to be 36. I think it is. If it's not 36, pretend like it is. So that's $36 an hour. Why are we multiplying it by 1.2? 1.2 is typically, well, if you look at your workers' compensation, your taxes for a W-2 employee, etc., 36 is where you need to be. Now, 36 is not only the number that you would pay a W-2 employee directly on average, but it's also the number that you should use if you're using production rates to project the labor component for your subcontractor. So if there's 100 hours in a job, you're going to pay the subcontractor $3,600. Okay, you're not going to let them share materials because you're picking that up yourself. You might do a saved material bonus program where if the budget is 500 and they come in at 400, you split the 100 that is saved. That's a good way to control material cost, and it can add 3 or 4 points a year to your gross profit margin, 5, 6 points, depending on how bad materials have been managed previously. So 36, and then we're going to take 36, we're going to multiply it by 2, and that is $72 an hour. So this is what you should be charging, and you can get it. But again, if you're not using production rates, you may close jobs because you've underpriced them, or you may lose jobs because you've overpriced them. If you don't have quality leads and persuasive sales, and if you're just constantly dealing with folks that don't have any money, who don't appreciate what you do, low disposable income, it's going to be harder to get this. Now, you will still get it, but you'll probably get it at a lower close rate. However, if these two things are in place, you can get it at a very high close rate. Okay, so this is important. So again, to recap, we're going to take an A-level crew lead, we're going to take an A-level painter, we're going to add those together, we're going to come up with a number, we're going to divide it by 2, we're going to multiply it by 1.2, and then we're going to double that. This works. Well, Brandon, I don't think you can get that where I am. And here comes the excuse making. Painters that are broke are always excuse making. People that have been stuck at the same level of growth for 10, 15, 20, 30 years always know everything. So for those of you who know everything, but you're broke, I can't help you. You know everything already. I don't even know why you're watching this video. So $72. Now, how do you price your paint? This is how I like to see paint priced. I may have to use some simple math here. I should have brought my calculator over here, but I'm unwilling to go get it. So how do you price your materials? So I'm going to go ahead and put down here that our labor price is $72. I'm just going to write this down here at the bottom so I don't forget it. So how should you price your materials? People are very cavalier. I mean, very cavalier about how they price and their materials. Like I said, some people come up with this arbitrary percentage, which is just dumb. It does not work. It has no bearing on the project, just some kind of arbitrary average of percentage. People blend it in with the rates. Like that makes no sense. You've got to calculate exactly how much paint is necessary by using material coverage rates, right? Basically, it's about 300 square feet on the wall. It's about 900 linear feet on 4-inch trim per gallon. You just need to measure everything and then do the division and multiplication. Estimating software, a good Excel sheet, all can be done in that. It's very easy. So you want to make absolutely sure that you are calculating materials accurately, right? We don't want to just guess how many gallons there are. We don't want to just assign an arbitrary percentage. So what I like to do is see the 20% off retail. People mark up their materials too little, and often they do not negotiate a very good price. If you feel like your prices for your paint are astronomical, if they've gone up by large percentage points for the last 5, 6, 7 years, I would highly recommend you go to paintersacademy.com, paintersacademy.com. There's a button up there that says Purchasing Group. We run a Painters Purchasing Group. Fill out the information, and we will even do an assessment for you, like an assessment of your painting prices. If you email me with the subject that says Paint Price Survey, and just send it to my email address, brandon@paintersacademy.com, I'll send you back and say, hey, you can save this much money. Most people overpay for their paint, okay? The more you overpay for the paint, the less money is going to be in every gallon for you. And I'm telling you, pricing your materials properly and getting them at the best price can swing 7 to 8 gross points. I mean, not gross points. Sometimes they can swing 7 to 8 like owner income points, meaning I like to see our guys at 30% cash flow to owner, which means if you run $1 million painting business and you're not in the field, you should make $300,000. Okay, if you're not in the field. If you're in the field, you should be getting your own hourly charge rate plus 50% of whatever you charge with the dude beside you. So if you're in a market where it's you and another guy painting and you're in the field all the time, you should be able to make $60 an hour if that's what you're pricing your stuff at. $60 an hour times 40, which would be $2,400 a week, and then $1,200 for the guy beside you that you're paying 25 but charging, or 30 and charging the client 60. Okay, so now you're making $90 an hour. So that is $2,400 plus $1,200 gets you to $3,600 a week. $3,600 times 4 is going to get you around $14,000 a month. That's what you should be making if you are painting in the field 40 hours a week, okay? Back to the material stuff. So let's say, and I'm going to use simple math. Let's say that at the paint store, it's $100 a gallon. You need to charge your clients somewhere around 80% of retail, or 20, either 25% off retail or 80% of the price. So $80 a gallon. What you don't want is for your customers to go into the paint store and be able to get the paint cheaper at retail than you're selling them as the broker, right? But then you've got to make sure, if this is $100 at retail, you really want to be somewhere around $40 a gallon. so that you can get 50% gross profits or double your money on your materials. That's really where you need to be. And if you can't do that, it's a mistake. It's also a mistake just to mark your materials up without understanding retail pricing. I see this, people get a gallon of paint for X dollars and they just multiply it by 125% or 50% or whatever, but they don't really know, okay, is that still a screaming low price? I mean, is that like 40% below retail, 50% below retail? You shouldn't pass all those savings, in my opinion, along to the client because you're already doing them a huge favor by getting them 20% off retail. You're not gouging anybody. You've got to make money on your materials. They have to be transported, disposed of, picked up, handled. In many states, and depending on how the taxation is, you're paying a tax on your gross revenues, and materials is a large component of that. We can't give materials away. So if we know that we're going to charge $80 a gallon and we're going to charge $72 an hour, if we do a project and it's got 100 labor hours in it, we're going to charge the client $7,200 for labor. And then if it's got 10 gallons in it, we're going to charge them $800 for materials, which means all in, we're going to charge them $8,000. So to recap, why this stuff works. The reason what I just showed you with calculating the labor and material works for one primary reason. It's market-based. It's not your opinion. It's not my opinion. It's what does the market pay for labor? What does the market pay for materials? Okay, we're going to set our prices based upon the market using a very specific markup number. And again, you may not believe me. It doesn't make a difference to me because it's still true. When you price stuff like this and you get your sales life in order and you get your leads in order, good things happen. Good things happen. You make a lot more money. It's accurate. You can take it to the bank all the time, but you got to have production rates. You got to have a good sales process, and you've got to have quality leads, which means often if you've got a big, huge client list and you never communicate with them or only send them an email once a month or once a quarter or maybe just a Christmas card, like you're leaving 90% of your repeat and referral work on the table. It's just not enough communication. And so increasing that percentage of repeat and referral work, improving your sales process so it's persuasive, and then pricing your labor and your material properly can make you so much more money with so much less headache and uncertainty. So if you have questions about this, put it in the comments around this video. Also, do check out the Painting Profit Summit. Just go to paintingprofitssummit.com. We would love to have you at this amazing event. It's 9 years running. Some of the nicest guys and the most accomplished painting contractors in the world. Our average attendee is 2.4 million. It's just a real good group of people that are more than happy to help you improve your business. If any of this seems Greek to you, I'd recommend going to that event. And also, just offer you, I don't bite. Well, maybe a little, but I don't bite. And I would be happy just to do a business diagnostic for you. We'll look at your operations, sales, macro metrics, client reactivation, retention, all the operational mechanics that either make you make a lot of money or lose money. I'll look at all your numbers. I'll look at all your systems, and I'll tell you exactly what to do and in which order to do it. And if you want to do that, just email me, Brandon@paintersacademy.com. You can also call the office, and somebody will answer the phone 24/7. And that's 423-800-0520. That's 423-800-0520. We would be happy to help you. Guys, hope this helps. And if you've got other questions, you've never seen any of this educational material, if this is a new concept to you, I'd also recommend just looking up the Painters Academy YouTube channel. I've been recording these videos since 2014. There are people that have watched hundreds and thousands of hours of them and have really learned a lot about how to run a painting business, even when they've not enrolled in the academy. So consider going to YouTube as well. And if you wouldn't mind, hit the subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up. It helps us get this information out to more painters so we can make more money and make our industry more stable and professional. Guys, I hope this helps. I'll talk to you next time. Have a good weekend.